She's like, yes, it tried to bite me. Help. Here you go, baby. Good girl. All right, Bo. Ready? 1, 2, 3, dog. Oh, you were so close, bud. You can get it. It's right there. It's right there. Yeah, good job. All right. Here you go, Bean. Good girl. It's okay to be upset. The camera did try to bite you. All right, Bo, ready? 1, 2, 3, dog. Good job. You caught it. Good job. All right, just as a notification for everybody who cares, Bo is about to turn 15. His birthday is on Monday. So on Monday, let's see if we can get them both on camera. They just love sitting just far enough apart that you like can't get them both on camera. Yeah, the camera attacked. So Bo is going to turn he is going to turn 15 on Monday. So he'll go from being geriatric to continuing to be ultra geriatric. Yeah. So, all right, let's start with our topic. So today we're talking about leaving those low paying projects. So this is something that I think is tough sometimes when you get a client where you like working with them, but you wait a really long time to leave the low paying project. You okay over there? You digging around? Okay. Thank you, Vicky. Bo says thank you. So you wait too long to leave these low paying projects, right? You like working with the client, or you feel like you really need the money, or you feel like there's a whole bunch of different things that kind of keep you stuck in that low paying project. And for me, what usually ends up happening is I keep this low paying project and it becomes like my lowest payer. Like I end up keeping this work and they end up just being my lowest paying work. And then I just get frustrated by it. So we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about a few important things where you can kind of like move along and how this kind of like works with your mindset and kind of like mental health stuff. So let's talk about the Velcro part, like why you're stuck like Velcro to this low paying project. Number one, a lot of times that's because you really like working with them. They're nice people. They're easy to work with. Sometimes you really need the money. Sometimes it's like your first client. I know that this has happened to me and some of my friends. You get your first client and you're just like, boop, you just like stick to them because you're like, man, you gave me a chance when like I didn't have anybody else. You were my only client. So you end up having a lot of like emotional attachment to these clients. You end up kind of like bonding to them in a way. And you bond to them in a few different ways, right? You bond to them in kind of this like, you're really grateful that they gave you a chance. You bond with them in a way where they're like easy to work with. And you're just like, oh man, like doing this work isn't that big of a deal. Yeah, I'm not getting paid well, but doing the work itself isn't ultra complicated. You bond with them because maybe they gave you a really good testimonial, or maybe they keep giving you a ton of work, right? There's a lot of things that we can enjoy and like about our lowest paid work, but it doesn't mean that we should stay there. It doesn't mean that we should continue working over and over and over again with them, even though we're seeing like our other projects go boop, 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 go really high up. And these are like, this guy just keeps dropping. Hey, Marie, welcome in. Yeah. So there's also this other thing that happens where I know for me, one of the things that stuck, like that I Velcro to clients is like, I keep ignoring red flags. I'm like, oh, that's not a big deal. And then I'm like, I look back on it and I'm like, what was I doing? And then there's like more red flags that come, like they pay late, or they forget things, or they say one thing and do another, or you get edits from them and you're like, this isn't what you asked for at all. Or man, you get red flags like they miss meetings, or they give you inconsistent direction, or there's always someone changing at the company. Like for 3 months, you work with one person and that person leaves, and then you work with another person and 2 or 3 months after that, they leave. And that churn is really a really big pain, and it's really hard to work with. But you're just like, oh, well, at least it's work. They still want to work with me. But that can be something that just like keeps you in this situation. It keeps you kind of like embroiled in this client relationship that's not really good for growing your business. Marie says, I had a great client who was local, but he felt since he had given me a break that I should do discount work. Oh yeah, I remember we talked about this. Yeah, so there's this other thing that keeps us stuck with our Velcro clients is like, we start feeling like we should do that, right? They gave us, oh my gosh, like we gave you your first pile of work, you're local, we live near each other, whatever. You should give me a discount because I gave you this thing. And it ends up being, yes, it ends up being this thing where we're like, we think that we should do that, right? We think there should be some sort of magical, like give and take, like you got the work. The work is like, you know, you got the work, you gave them basically like discount pricing anyways, right? Because it's probably your first project or your early project. So yeah, there's like this weird thing that happens sometimes where, hello, Flower Power. I feel like I know who Flower Power is. I remember you said your name in a comment once, but Flower Power, let me know what your name is so I can say what your actual name is instead of Flower Power. Happy Friday. Yeah, so like there's these things. I'd call you Flower Power if you want. I just feel like sometimes people are like, oh yeah, that's just my username for YouTube. I'd rather be called, you know, Becky or whatever. So anyways, yeah, this is something that we end up feeling like we should do that, right? Like we get sucked in. We're like, oh man, like maybe I should give a discount because he gave me this work. And it comes from this place of like low self-worth or like worrying there's not going to be other clients or hanging on to this low paying work, like hanging on to this low paying work where we think that that's like our only option, or we think that like we deserve that, or that like someone's finally paying us for the thing that we love to do, right? Are you okay? And we feel like we should, you know, take less money for that. Are you okay? Are you traumatized by the camera biting you? I feel like you just really had a hard day today. You okay? Here you go. Here you go, buddy. Ready? Whoa, let's see if we can do it for the camera. 1, 2, 3, dog. That was a bad throw. That was my fault. Hold on. It's right here. Ooh, there you go. All right, ready? Let's try again. 1, 2, 3, dog. Oh, buddy, you're so close. You need help? Sorry, Charlotte. All right, buddy, we'll find it later. We'll find it later. Here you go. We'll find it later. All right, Charlotte, can you go in your hobbit hole? Good job. Man, Charlotte, you seem really sad. She's sitting over there, not now because I'm giving her Tritos, but she's sitting over there. She looked so sad before. Ready, Bo? Okay, 1, 2, 3, dog. Oh, you're so close, buddy. Here you go. You have to tell him 1, 2, 3, dog, or else he can't catch anything. I know this sounds silly, but I used to just throw things for him, and he would never catch them. And then, like now, the last, I don't know, couple of months where I've said 1, 2, 3, dog, he can actually catch things. So you have to say that. Hey, Lisa, welcome in. Welcome to our live stream. We're a little wild today. We were a little late. Thanks for everybody for holding on. Cool. So let's keep talking about this. This is why we're stuck. There's a lot of things that we do with like how we feel about ourselves, what we think we deserve in clients, the types of things that we as freelance writers really struggle with in terms of like self-worth, mindset, and mental health. Like we think it's okay to like, a lot of times we're like, thank God someone's just paying me to write. That's kind of it. Like, oh my gosh, someone's actually paying me to do the thing I want to do instead of me working a 9-to-5 job doing boring stuff that I don't want to do. So we end up getting Velcroed to these clients because we're like, they gave me a chance. I should just hang on for dear life. No one will ever give me this chance again, which isn't true at all. The second thing we want to talk about is how to know when we need to leap to greener pastures. This is really important. So this is something that took me a long time. Yeah, I know. Whisper loves the Tritos thing. And it just like as a FYI, if you have questions while I'm going over anything, feel free to pop them in the chat. Feel free to hop in there, put a question. If I say something weird or confusing, ask a question. We're happy. We're going to go through questions at the end. So when you need to jump to greener pastures. So here's a few things. Number 1, I have numbers now, guys. This is magical. Bo, what are you doing? Okay. Number 1.
Go in.
Okay. It's over there somewhere. We lost a Trito and now we're having like a treasure hunt for it. I think it's actually behind the pet bed, but I'm not totally sure. Anyways, number 1, when you need to jump to greener pastures, if you are feeling burned out, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling annoyed, if you're feeling frustrated, If you start hating the client, if every time you get an email from them, you're like, oh my gosh, please shoot me. If you end up getting all this work where you're just like, I hate this, I don't want to work this, like this is boring or whatever. I think it's behind that pet bed. Did you find it? Maybe it's in the blanket. We're having a mass problem. If you end up getting any of these things where you feel like your mental health or your mindset is taking a hit, or like you hate it, like this is something that happens when sometimes people get high paid work. They end up working with clients that just aren't a fit for them, and they end up getting really frustrated really easily. That's when you need to know, like, I got to cut this loose. I got to get out of here. Hi. So you find it yet? No. Well, it fell over there, so I don't know. It's disappeared. Anytime you feel like your mental health or mindset are taking a hit, or you're like negative, right? Like you end up being really negative. Like every time you write an email, you're like, all right, time to put my happy face on and try to pretend like this is great. Then you need to move on. The next thing that we want to talk about with greener pastures, because now I have a number 2, is, oh my gosh. All right. I see this is just like a big, oh my gosh, you're going to knock everything down. Okay. We're having a wild live stream today. This is just how it is today. All right. Come here. All right. Hold on. We'll find it later, buddy. Can you go lay down? Good job. Lay down. Good boy. All right, Charlotte, go in your hobbit hole. Go in your hobbit hole. Charlie Bean, hobbit hole. Good girl. Here you go, bud. This is what happens when you have wild animals living in your house. When you have a warthog and a wild bear living in your house, this is what happens. All right, number 2, you need to move to greener pastures if your regular clients, like most of your other clients, are up here and this client is down here. Okay? If there's a big gap, like this client is giving you $500 a month and these clients are giving you $2,000 a month, that's a problem. If your per word or your project rate, so like let's say your blog posts for this client are $100 a blog post and this is $300 a blog post, they gotta go. Like they gotta go. And it doesn't mean they have to go immediately. So let me clarify this. Sometimes people think like, oh, just because the price differentiation is so big, I should just cut them immediately. No. You need to phase them out. You need to have enough work in at this level to phase this one out, because this isn't really helping you grow your career. And I'm sure that really what happens is you get really frustrated really quick. So you want to phase them out. You want to get another client at this level. Then you can phase this one out and say, hey, just wanted to give you guys a little notice. My client load, I don't have enough room in my schedule anymore and we need to move on. We need to cancel our contract, or you just end the contract, right? You say like, all right, this contract only has 2 more months on it. I'll finish up the contract. I won't renew it. Or if it's really bad, like if things are really frustrating and you're really just like, I don't want to do this, always, always, always in your contract, have something in there that says like you can cancel the contract. Mine says 15 days notice. So mine says freelancer and client can cancel the contract as long as both of them give 15 days notice. So, yeah, they are being hurricane pups today. Yeah, and Marie says, when I take a low-paying job, I find that I don't have the time to do marketing to get the better paid job. Yeah, we'll talk about this too. We'll talk about this. That'll be our number 3. I'll switch them up. So we'll talk about that as number 3. So number 3, when you're doing a lot of stuff for a low-paying job, here's what usually happens. You end up doing a lot of work for a little bit of money. And because you're spending all that time doing that low-paid work, you're sucked in, right? You don't have time to market to do higher clients, right? Like you don't have time to do all the marketing to get a better paying project. So sometimes what ends up happening, and I've done this in my business, is you have to let the low paying client go and use all of that time that you used to spend working on their stuff to get the better paid client. This can be frustrating and hard. And sometimes you're like, oh man, I really wish I still had that money. But when you get that better paying client, it's all worth it. So here's the deal. usually what ends up happening, and I found this in my business, is when I have a low paying client, I end up working a lot for them. Like I'm really getting like if I were to work it out hourly, like I'm getting a very low hourly rate. I'm working a ton. I'm doing very complex stuff for not a lot of money. And all of that time and effort can be put into my marketing. I can send my LOIs. I can make my list of companies to reach out to. I can pay attention to more sources and information to compile places I need to reach out to or people to grow my network with. Um, so when you're like kind of looking at the time spend, is your time better spent on a $500 a month client? Or is your time better spent on finding a $1,000 a month client? You have to kind of make that decision. So here's the deal. If you really need the money, sometimes you just have to make it work. So that means you have to find some, okay, you have to find some way to find that time. Like maybe you spend like Saturday mornings doing it for like a month, just every Saturday for a month, you try to do it. Or you end up saying like, all right, like I'm just going to put like a movie on. I'll put a movie on and then I'll do marketing for an hour and that'll be that. But when you feel like it's a time suck, right? When you're working on this low paying work and you feel like you don't have time to do marketing to get a better paying job, that's usually a big signal that you need to cut that client anyways. So you have marketing time, because man, it's really like using all your time, energy, and effort. So that would be number 3. The next thing we want to talk about, I like having these numbers. It's nice. So the next thing we want to talk about is like your mental health burnout aspect. This has happened to me a bunch. So a lot of times when I have a low paying client, and this was like years ago, I would end up getting really burned out. I would just like work a lot for them and not make a lot of money. And I had this idea, like I had this mindset of like, oh, well, instead of doing 5 things, I'll just do 20 a month. Like I'll just do more of the same thing. I'll just put more of my eggs in that one basket and it'll be fine. And like, that doesn't work. You don't want to be doing that. So this was something that I did where I was like, oh, I'm doing, 5 or 10 articles a month. If I could do 20 a month, I would make this much money and I'd be set. And that's not what you want to do. You don't want to increase the low paid stuff. You want to decrease the low paid stuff and increase your high paid stuff from other sources. You want varied amounts of income. So if you start feeling bitter and resentful and angry, you should leave. You should go to greener pastures. If you're in a place where your mental health is suffering and you're like feeling really anxious about dealing with that client, or you're just like really like it's really messing with your attitude, like you feel like you're not being your regular self with your friends and family, like you're just always on edge or you're always annoyed, or there's something that it's really weighing on like how you act in the rest of your life, then they gotta go. You gotta move on. I came across this, like, there's like this idea I came across recently from somebody else that's basically like no amount of money and no amount of success and no amount of career stuff and no amount of like all these things are going to replace your mental health, right? Like nothing, you can't like get the points back by being more successful. Like it doesn't work that way. So if you start chipping away at your mental health points while you work for low paid clients, then when you get high paid clients, like your attitude sucks and you're already annoyed and frustrated and bitter because you got this like dark cloud hanging around. So when you move to greener pastures, you got to pay attention. Like that's a big signal, is like when you're feeling all of these really negative, horrible emotions. And sometimes like they're normal. Let's just start there. All of the negative emotions are normal. That's going to happen from time to time. What we're talking about is like regularly, like you work with this client every day or every time you get an email or every time you submit work, or it's like a regular occurrence where you're just like, oh gosh, like you just hate it. So you got to move on to greener pastures there. You can't just like hang on to it and just keep trucking along, because I'm telling you, like the long-term mental health cons of that are like really heavy. And this is another reason why a lot of people end up quitting freelance writing, because instead of realizing that they could do all of these other things, they could market to get better clients, they could cut their low payers, they could realize that there really isn't a big emotional connection between you and your clients most of the time. Like they just quit freelance writing. They're like, oh, all I got was like $150 a blog post and like I had to work a ton and it was horrible. They don't think about like other options of how it could be better. They just quit because they're like, this is the only thing that's happening. and I'm feeling bad all the time. And instead of like looking at the feeling bad part, and instead of really paying attention to all the little things that happen, right? All the little things like, oh, you start getting like a tinge of annoyance every time you get an email. Then you get a tinge of frustration. Then you're like, oh my gosh, why are they emailing me? Yeah, you know. Instead of paying attention to that, they like let it build up and then they quit. So when we kind of like hang on to these low paying projects for way too long, we end up building up this like big pain in the butt kind of feeling. And then when we let them go, we feel relief, right? So if you think about it, let's talk about like, this will be our last one in this category. So our last one in this category is number 5. If you think about getting rid of this client and you feel relieved, you should get rid of that client. Even if they're a high paying client, which this happens, people get high paying clients and those high paying clients are like more high maintenance than like all their other clients. If it becomes something where you're just like, I would feel relieved not doing this, I would feel relieved not having to work on this project anymore, they need to go. And they don't need to go immediately. But I can tell you, as someone where this has happened to me, like, you got to phase them out. Like, this is not something that's good for your business. It's not something that's good for your regular work. It's not good for your creativity or your writing skills. Like, it just becomes something. Please don't throw up. Please don't throw up today. It just gets something that that weighs on you. It's just something that ends up being a big anchor that weighs your business down and weighs your writing down. It's a big pain in the butt. So pay attention to this stuff. Like, pay attention to all these little things that come up. Pay attention to how you're feeling. And when you wait a really long time to let go of low payers, right? Like, I know most of the time when I talk to students, like, or people in my Freelance Writer Wealth Lab course, when I talk to them and they're like, yeah, I'm doing this thing, it's like they've hung on to these low payers for years sometimes, like long periods of time. We're doing a little treasure hunting still. And this really weighs them down. They feel like there's no way out. They feel like there's no other options. They feel like they're not able to really move up in freelancing. Like, they feel like that's all there is because they've just hung on to this person or this client for so long. And it really changes like how they view the landscape of freelance writers. It really, what are you doing? Hi, bud. We're doing a lot of digging today. What are you doing? What are you doing? We're having a wild day. Thanks for hanging on for our wild day today, everybody. I know normally we're a little more focused, or like I'm a little more focused, but today we're just having a wild day. It's just, I don't know. We lost a Trito, so now it's DEFCON 1 in here, and we're looking, like, Bo's been digging around looking for it. Like, if you can see, like, he's dug all the blankets off, and he's like looking through all the things and trying to find it. Bo, we'll find it, buddy. Don't you worry. Oh, he found it. Or did you do that? You throw one? Aw, I thought he found it. Good job, buddy. You did it. You're the best. Now you can stop looking. Okay. All right. So let's keep going. So we have a few more things. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything about your low paying clients, or maybe, you know, your frustrations with other types of things. If you feel like this has been helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you feel like you want to learn more about building a high income freelance writing business, subscribe. All right, let's talk about this. When should you leave your low-paying clients behind for good? If you're frustrated, if you're annoyed, if they're harming your mental health, if you're anxious, if it's making you feel depressed, like actually depressed, not like you like, oh my God, I'm so depressed. No, like actual, like your depression is kicking in and you're like the dark hole. You're like living in the dark hole. You need to say goodbye to them when you have that gap. You need to say goodbye to them when they're rude to you or disrespectful. You need to say goodbye to them when you have differences in how the content is, right? Like, they just want you to churn content. No, we don't ever want to just churn the content. The whole point is that we create quality content that lasts for a long time. Like, we create content that lives. You don't want to end up in this situation most of the time where you're just churning and churning and churning. Even if you end up getting a client where they're like, hey, we're trying to create a bunch of content for a launch, or we're trying to create a bunch of content to refresh our website, that's a way different story. That's not just like we're creating content endlessly forever. This is like, we need quality pieces when people show up to our website or show up to this thing. We need quality stuff for them to land on. That's a way different beast. So you have to say goodbye to your lowest paying clients when you are in a place that you just feel like it's not really worth it to your business, your mental health, your mindset, your bank account to hold on to them. Like there's a bunch of different things where we have these low paying clients and we just keep holding on to them because because we feel like things would be worse without them, or we feel like we won't get a better client, or that like thank God someone's paying us to do what we want to do, or there's just so many different factors that happen. But you got to leave that client behind when it's really starting to affect you. And this happens a lot more times than people like to admit. Like they're like, oh yeah, I just, got a new client, whatever. Like they don't want to admit that it just wasn't a fit. And they don't want to admit that it was really frustrating and hard to work with them. And they don't want to admit that they feel like they've failed, right? Like by getting rid of a client or something, they feel like they failed. And it's just part of having our business. Like part of being a freelance writer is knowing when you need to get out of there, like when you need the escape hatch. That's part of learning how to run your business, is like, when do I actually need the escape hatch? When do I actually need to get out of there for the betterment of my life? There's times where like I've cried over many clients. I've cried over many clients and I've been so angry and frustrated. And then I'm like, you know what? Why am I doing this? Like I shouldn't even be working with them. Like this is obviously not a fit. What I'm doing right now is not a fit. Like whatever I turn in or whatever I'm doing, it's just not a fit for them. I just like, and it's not good for either party. If it's not a fit, it's not good for either party, because it's frustrating for them to have to do edits or to have to do all of these different things. It's frustrating for you. So it's kind of like relief for everybody. We kind of just part ways and move on. So really important stuff though, when you're leaving your clients, right? Really important stuff when you should just like finally stop the waiting period and get rid of your low paying clients, is like anything where you feel like it's just like changing the way you see your business. It's making you feel really negative. It's harming your mental health. It's harming your mindset. You start feeling like you're never going to get a good client, or you're never going to move up, or you're never going to be able to make good money. Like all of these things really hit heavy. You got to get out of there. And then our last thing that we want to go over is what we want to do with great relationships. So you can still have good relationships with these low paying clients while you leave. So here's the deal. We can maintain these relationships. We can stay connected with people on LinkedIn. We can, do you want to go to your hobbit hole? Here, go to your hobbit hole. Try not to knock everything down. We can still maintain great relationships with them because we're connected with them on LinkedIn, or we can send them a referral for a writer that might be better at that price point. Like maybe for you, that price point is well below what you're getting paid for your other work. But maybe for another writer, maybe like a newer writer, that price point is like the highest thing they've ever gotten. And maybe they'll be a better fit for that client. You can give them a referral. That's a good way to maintain a relationship. The other thing is that we want to end on good terms. You can just tell them like, hey, I just don't think, I'm the right fit. I just don't seem to be meeting the needs that you need, like for the content. There's always like a nice way to get out of the relationship. Well, not always, but most of the time. You don't have to go to them and say like, you're my lowest paying client. This is the worst. You want too much for the money. Like, oh my gosh, don't say any of that. We can still maintain good relationships with them. We can still like end on good terms, and we can say like, yeah, I've really enjoyed working with you, but it just seems like, my content isn't a match, or it seems like my writing style isn't a match, or you can say like, I feel like we're not on the same page when it comes to expectations for the content. There's so many things that happen in amongst working for your clients, right? There's so many different things like that you can say like, hey, this is just doesn't seem to be working out. It seems really frustrating for you to have to go back and make all these changes or whatever it is. So you can always do that. And then you can say like, hey, I'd love to stay in touch, in case we can work together again at some point down the road, or, we're maintaining relationships with people that we actually want to maintain relationships with. If you have a low paying client where you're just like, I got to get out of here, like push the red button, like beep, like let's get out. You don't have to maintain relationships with them. You can just say like, hey, we're not a fit. Like I would like to cancel the contract, end it there. But this is for people where it's just like you feel a little more velcro to them. Like you feel a little bit more attached to them. Like you like them as a person. It's just not working out. And I find that sometimes what's really helpful is like, they still connect with you on LinkedIn. Like you put up posts or put up new clips, or you end up, putting something on LinkedIn and they share it or they like it or they comment on it, and you can still maintain that relationship with them. And we're talking about the good people. We're talking about people that we want to maintain a relationship with. And sometimes what ends up happening is those people end up moving to a company with more money, or they move to a company with different expectations, or they move to their own company and they're like, we want you to come on to this agency and write for us. And maintaining those relationships with those clients are really good. Sometimes, there's clients you get where their budget, like they understand their budget for the project is too low for what they want. And when they move companies, they're like, we actually have budget now. And I think it's important to maintain certain relationships because you never know who's going to refer you. You never really know what kinds of stuff will change or happen. You never know if they'll open their own business and want you to come write for them. You never really know. So if you have a good relationship with someone, like, and mostly you're leaving because of price, or because, it's just really frustrating. Like it's not that person, it's somebody else at the company who wants you to write some other kinds of changes. Like, I think it's important to maintain those relationships. So you can always leave on a good note. Just tell them like, tell them like, I just feel like my writing style is not a fit, or I feel like we have different expectations for the content. Or I feel like, when I write it and we do a lot of edits, we're just not a match. Like my content, and the expectations or the outline that you gave me and then the final product are really different. So I feel like it would be better for you to find a different writer who's a better fit for you. Like, that's it. We don't have to go into a diatribe. It's not like we're not like breaking up with them in a rom-com. Like, we're not in a rom-com. We're like, oh my gosh, no. Like, it's not like that at all. This is a business relationship, right? So yes, we want to maintain a friendship with them, a relationship with them. If they're, if they're a good client, or like if they're a good person, and it's just like, there's some things that are a little jammed up. But it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be this thing where you go into this long diatribe about why you need to break up or why you need to cancel the contract. Like, very rarely have I found that people, like, when you say like, hey, I just don't think this is a fit, do they come back and they're like, why? Like, very, very rare do they want to know why. Like, they're taking that as rejection. So they're not, they most of the time don't want to know why they're being rejected, other than the fact that it's not a fit. So, any questions? Any last things that we can go over today before we hop off? Any last things we want to talk about? Just remember that when you're like holding on to these low paying projects, it's okay to leave them. Like, you don't have to hold on to them because they were your first client. You don't have to hold on to them because they're really nice people. You can maintain a relationship with them, not working for them until they have more budget or until they move somewhere else. I also feel like when writers end up waiting too long for, like holding on to these low paying projects, like, remember that it's a lot of times the emotion is like on our side. Like, our clients aren't as emotionally attached to us as we are to them. So if you're feeling very emotional and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I'm going to leave them in the lurch, and I can't believe I'm going to like leave them hanging. Like, number one, you can always refer another writer to them who you think might actually be a better fit. Number two, you can always help them try to find somebody else. Number three, you can finish off your contract with them and just say like, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm not going to renew the contract. I just don't think we're a great fit to continue working together. And then you can give them all this advance notice and all this stuff, where you don't have to like wait it out for years, and you don't have to like stay on Upwork or stay on a platform and be like, oh my gosh, all I'm getting is this crappy stuff. You don't have to wait. This is like a mind thing. Like, you think you have to wait because of all these different factors, but you don't. You don't have to wait. And you don't have to feel like you're letting somebody down. You're trying your best, right? Like, if you really are trying your best, this is your best right now. It may not be your best forever, right? Like 5 years down the road, you might have been able to do better, but you're here right now. This is where you are. If you're really trying your best, then this is the best you can do. It's just not working out. It's not a fit. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where you feel like your mental health is taking a check, like a drop, your mindset's taking a drop, you're feeling bitter and angry and resentful and upset, if you're in any kind of thing where you get an email or a comment or something from them and you're just like, oh my God, like, you got to get out of there. Don't wait, because that stuff builds up and then it goes out to all your other clients. It trickles out. If you have a big gap, like you started with this client, they're your first client, and they just, or a second client, and they're just down here, and every other client's like way up here, eventually you got to phase them out. And that's not just on money. It's also like holding you back, because oftentimes the value of that content is going up as you get more experience. So cool. All right. It seems like we don't have any questions or any extra things to go over. Oh, I missed a whole bunch of parts of the chat. Hold on 1 second. I missed a bunch of stuff. Let's see. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Marie says, what emotionally helps is if you have some spare food in your pantry that's all luxury, that is to you a luxury frozen blueberries or your favorite cookie, and you're not going to eat it all at once. It's a bit of a cushion. Yeah, like sometimes you have to, like I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who comfort eats sometimes. Bless you. Marie says, you made a really good comment in our wealth lab. So right now I'm running like my course students. So Marie is one of my course students in the Freelance Writer Wealth Lab. So we have our live Q&As twice a week. So I think she's talking about that. Look at how much a client is worth to you, like how much you make like per year from them and how much they're going to make from what you write for them, right? There's a big difference. So if you have a low paying client, just remember that like the ROI they're getting on their content is like crazy high. Like content marketing is like the cheapest way to make the most money, bar none. It's better than paid ads. It's better than all the other ways. So doing content and creating content gets them so much more money in. So like what they're paying you is always going to be really small to what they're getting back. So always keep that in mind too when you're thinking about leaving low paying clients. Diane, welcome in. I'm glad you're here. It's okay. Diane, you can't miss it. You can just show up and join us. So if you want to watch the replay later, you can totally do that. But yeah, then I can't chat. Well, Diane, we're glad that you're here to chat with us. So, oh, good. Pitch-a-thon for November. That's also a good thing. So if you feel like you need to let go of some clients, do a pitch-a-thon. Send a bunch of LOIs. Send a bunch of pitches to magazines. Yeah, that's always a good way. Cool. Let's see. Cool. All right. I think we're good. All right. Well, I'm glad everybody joined today. Thanks, Diane and Marie and Vicky, and there's somebody else that I'm forgetting.
Flower Power.
Flower Power. That's right. Flower Power and Lisa. Yeah. Thanks everybody for showing up, for, your interest in this topic. If you have anything that pops up, like how have you kind of dealt with low paying clients? Is there anything that's popped up where where you feel like you made a good transition away from a low-paying client? Drop it in the comments below. I'm interested to hear. Sometimes people end up firing clients and it ends up being the best thing they've ever done. And sometimes they fire clients and it's like the worst thing. It just depends. So if you've ever had a really successful, client offboarding experience, let me know below. Or if there's anything where you feel like there's a reason why you hung on to a low payer for a really long time, drop that in the comments below. Oh, good. I'm glad that this was encouraging. Yeah. There's always, think of it this way. Sometimes it's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about better fit. And sometimes, yes, you have a low paying client, and yes, your next client pays you maybe like $100 more per blog post or $500 more per case study or something. But sometimes it's just about fit. Sometimes you have this low paying client and you realize once you let go of them that it wasn't about the money. It was really about the fit. So just remember, there's always better fits out there for you. Always, always, always. There are always better fits out there for you. Like there's plenty of clients who need help. There's plenty of clients who need content. If anything, the thing I keep hearing is like people are opening up their budgets for 2022. Oh my gosh, we're grumpy. So there's always a better fit out there. There's always a better client. And sometimes letting go of low payers, you realize that after the fact. You realize that after the fact that it wasn't really about the money. It was like all the stuff surrounding it. And then you were like, also, I'm not getting paid very well. So cool. I'm glad that was helpful. I'm glad that was encouraging. We'll be back here every Friday. We're here every Friday at noon Central. If you feel like this was helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you feel like you want to learn more about a high earning freelance writing business, subscribe, and I will see you next Friday. Bye. Oh, and thanks for dealing with our wild ride today. Thanks for dealing with our wild ride where we have a lost Trito and wild dogs. So thank you for hanging on in there. All right. Bye.